What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another mod stream. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are having a spantastic day. I don't know what a spantastic day is, but I hope you're having it. I hope it's good, and I hope you're having it. If it's not good, then don't have it. Anyway, what's up, Veek? I see you waving. Today, I'm going to be working on my submission for Mapcraft Season 4, Episode 2. So far, we have potentially 4 submissions coming, actually, which is a pretty respectable number, because Kian said he's going to try something. Veek, I think you're trying something and I'm doing something, and then Helltrix said he might submit something. So yeah, maybe we'll get 4. You never know. I'm going to just resume some music because I've paused it earlier. Anyway, what are we doing today? On today's stream, I'm going to be doing the script writing and like rough blocking and stuff for the dialogue that we're going to see in the Cellbound mission. So first I'll open up the mission so you guys can see that. And I guess before we even jump into that, something that we could probably do is go into here, go to the map dev, and actually see how our progress has been so far. So this is after the first stream, this was before the second stream, and this is after the second stream. But it's not even fully after the second stream. This is like the next big bit of progress, and then afterwards we ran some more details, and we added a bit more cover. We added the start locations for the witnesses, and we also shifted this top left area overall. So that's what we're looking at right now. And as a result of these changes, I feel like the layout's pretty fine. Like, I don't think we actually need to make any other changes. And it would seem kind of foolish to worry too much about the layout now. We even did some very brief AI testing. I didn't see any problems, to be honest. Like, I saw concerns where it looks like the central players went out too much, but we're going to take steps to address the issues with the build orders of the Terran player. So the singular build order. We're going to take steps later on. And then I'm not necessarily going to be balancing around an AI being the North player because it's not going to play as reactively as a player is going to be, where you kind of want the player's adaptability in this context. So there you go. That's my spiel. So this is the map. This is what we have at our disposal. And overall, I would say I'm pretty excited to see where we can go. I'm pretty excited to see what we're able to accomplish with just a little bit of work on the script writing side. Like, can we make this feel like an actual battlefield to some extent? Can we enhance the immersion? Obviously, we don't want to detract from the immersion that is afforded by the game itself. So a part of that is going to be AI script level things that we do on a per map basis, which I now have the framework to do. I discussed this a couple mod streams ago. But first, before we do any of that, we want to write out the personalities that are at play. We want to describe some of the characters, or at least the characteristics of the characters that are going to be at play here. And I already have a little bit of a method I've been developing to handle this. So in UED Commander's map, birthday map, Wall Street War, I actually did write everything out here. So this started off as the design document for the Capital, which was my previous Mapcraft submission like a week ago. And I talked about how like we've got different forces. This is just like the space commies or whatever before I gave it a meme name because of UED Commander. And then I had like goals. And then I had a separate section and it was characters. And this is what we have. So we would do something like writing out the characters on a per faction basis. So here are the characters for the Unending Ditto Commandery. Here's the characters for the Crap Coin Miners, and here's the characters from the 1%. So for each faction, you get a list of characters, and then you get the briefing, including a very brief, no pun intended, description of what happens in the briefing. And then you get the in-game, and you get a new sort of line or whatever with each section, more or less. So we could still tweak the format. Like, there's probably some specific things I could do to make it more readable, but that's the base idea that I'm going to be using here. So we'll do Cellbound, and then I guess I'll note Mapcraft for EO2, and we have I know we had Alisara Jury, I think it was. So we have Alasara Jury as Force 1, Eviz Sect Interlopers, and Starbound Exiles. And then just get the entries done for here. So I don't actually know. It looks like... Oh yeah, so in this case, I described their positioning. I'm not sure if that's actually that useful, but I figure I can talk about their starting locations. So here we would have like just we'll say North Basilica Post, and then we would say obviously we don't have a character name for him yet, but that'll be the Alasara leader. And then for Eviz Sect Interlopers, we have Southwest, and I guess this would just be like we'll say Southwest Lakeside Node, and this will be Eviz Sect Leader Terran. And then we'll have, this is Zerg and Protoss. I'm not even sure if we're going to have like a leader for the Zerg or if there would be a character. I actually feel like maybe the Starbound leader should probably speak for both Zerg and Protoss. So we could say, we could have it be like that. Because I feel like it makes less sense to worry about the way to have dialogue with Zerg. Like, I've reclaimed Cerebrits as a concept by making it so that they're actually a Terran creation, and then you can still have the Terran characteristics of a Cerebrit that were already existing in the original writing. Now it's actually justified. So, as a result of that, like, I could throw a Cerebrit here, but the problem is the Starbound are supposed to be controlling them, so unless it was like an alliance of convenience and there was a Cerebrit that it was created by Terran that then agreed to serve or fight alongside the Starbound, like, it becomes more convoluted as a premise. In this case, we just know that the Starbound are consorting with Zerg. We don't know if the Starbound are consorting with a Zerg leader, but we won't be showing a Zerg leader, which actually means that we only have 3 characters in this setting or in this mission on the outset. Like, we only are required to have 3 characters. I still think I'll have a 4th one so that we can have 2 characters talk in the briefing, and that 4th character will be like an aide to the Alasara leader or something like that. Maybe somebody who's commanding him, you could imagine. So we'll see where we go there. But it looks like we'll have 4 characters with speaking roles. Whoever's in the briefing will probably not also have dialogue in game, but theoretically you could see a world where that could happen. So we'll see where it goes. But for now, we know that these guys are in the central chasm, and I think that's it. So we'll do goals, and then obviously characters. All right, I'll do players. Maybe goals should be up here, actually, just because it's a little bit less immediately it's less immediately linked, whereas players, and then you go into characters, it's like, oh, the characters are who these people are or whatever. So that would make sense. And then obviously briefing in game. So now we have some dialogue and stuff. Okay. And then I guess we have to decide if we want an intro or not. But and then I'm guessing, I'm trying to think of, again, like the very rough cut. When I'm planning my scripts, I try to plan out a lot of the basic stuff and figure out like what the dialogue events actually are going to be. So I know, for example, I'm going to want a dialogue line where it's like first contact with Starbound Zerg, and then first contact with Starbound Protoss, and then first contact with Eviz Sect Terran. And then it'll be like, there'll be some boilerplate, like just copy and paste stuff, you know what I mean? So I guess it wouldn't be boilerplate, it would be like stock. There'll be some stock, maybe you could even describe it if you're being negative as like cookie cutter. There'll be like these kinds of events that would always happen in RTS. So you can think of like taking an expansion, or well, killing an enemy expansion and then losing an expansion to an enemy. You can imagine both of those as these areas where you can have banter between characters, right? And you can have that back and forth. So I would imagine like eliminate a Starbound Zerg expansion. And then we would have one that's eliminate a Starbound Protoss expansion. And then obviously eliminate a Eviz Sect Terran expansion. And then there would be like lose an expansion to Starbound Zerg, lose an expansion to Starbound Protoss, and lose an expansion to Eviz Sect. How did I describe this earlier? I think it was something, it was actually like this, probably. And then, so I didn't use all caps, which is probably better for readability at a glance. And Okay, so one of the things that I want to play around with as a basis for some of these characters is actually imagining the characters as like, at least in some cases, I would imagine some of these characters to be like decorated units almost. Like literally like, oh, this guy was an apostle and then he, revived a bunch of dudes and stayed alive for a bunch of battles. And like it's unlikely obviously, but eventually you'd have like even in your actual games, like you throw together like thousands of units as part of your army. Some of them are going to survive till the end, right? So you imagine across a long enough time scale, you would get these kinds of decorated like success stories. And so some of these characters would have lived on from a large number of battles, and that's a way where we can try to play around with expectations. So I was even thinking of actually having the Evis sect Nidus Trinity leader, that guy being an apostle. Like I was playing around with that concept. Is like we have this idea where like I can just straight up be that. Like that can be a thing. So I kind of like that idea. I am just now realizing I haven't written down any goals. So I should probably do that. But to finish my point about the other stuff, I'll say I think it's really easy to use that as a starting point, and then you can imagine like, well, what would happen if an apostle of all fucking entities was, rose the ranks, so to speak. And it would make a little bit more sense anyway, because like this guy could literally revive revive the dead or whatever. So it makes sense. What's up, Mutas doesn't welcome. Wave emoji number 2. So I'm imagining like it's okay. It would make sense to convert a unit concept into a character theoretically, right? Like you wouldn't use it for like tier 1 units most likely. Like a zealot's not gonna fucking survive a million battles. He's on the front lines literally. Like Mavericks are low HP, they're not gonna survive a million battles. But you could easily imagine like actually one of the things that I've been meaning to play around with is like the long-term effects of reviving from Lazarus Agent. Like it is meant to just revive you after you died in a battle. So it's not necessarily designed for the purpose of like, you'll be just the same character you were before. You know what I mean? Like they didn't really consider that when they were doing the focus testing, the R&D. So I imagine it would be something like a character that's been revived a few times, maybe one time too many, and starts to go off the deep end or something. I'm not going to explore that this time around, but it's an idea anyway. So we could even have like a character that started off as, started off as like a normal, for lack of a better term, Terran combatant, but was revived one too many times, went off the fucking deep end, now part of the cult of the Nidus Trinity, or part of the fucking Protoss worshippers of the Golden Republic or something, you know what I mean? So another thing that just occurred to me is, I imagine the okay, so I imagine that for these different subfactions of the Nidus Trinity, like that have different sects for different parts of the, like basically different areas, right? Just like you'd have a different church or congregation depending on where you are. So that's kind of the same thing. So regionally, like there's going to be way different things. So I kind of like the idea of these guys like sacrificing, they trade their last name for whatever sect they join. But I don't know if that's actually useful. I do imagine I don't know if they would call it, like I don't know how crazy I would want to go here. So like I could have them be like, maybe it's like a hyphenated thing where like it could be like, you know, like I don't know. In this case, we could go with any last name. We could do like Smith or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, so you could imagine it could be something like this. I don't know, but it's possible. I'll play around with that idea anyway. For now, I'll give him an actual last name. But the reason why I was going down that route is because I'm trying to think about like what these guys would be called. Like, would they be called like Brother? Would he be like Brother Simons or something? Or would it be Apostle Simons? Like, would they carry over the honorifics of like Father for clergy? Would they be seen as that? Would they have a instead a military type thing? Like, I don't imagine they would have a pope, but their pope is just the fucking overman. Yeah, I don't know. Playing around with that idea from a conceptual standpoint, like that's one of the goals, I guess, is like, we'll say, exploring the organization of the various factions in the Cosmonarchy setting. I guess we'll say in Cosmonarchy's setting is a pretty high priority for deciding which direction to go when it comes time, or when the time comes to start proper campaign development. So there you go, there's something. So that would be goal number, like that would be a probably like a fairly secondary goal. The first goal is I want to further experiment with the Gold Rush lopsided team FFA style that I started in Wall Street 4. That I will say that I tried in Wall Street War. Obviously, this will say this time around it's a team of 2 in the middle, and that yeah, Vik, I feel like it's a pretty interesting idea to like take these unit thematics that we have and extrapolate them, bring them to their, I don't know about natural conclusion, but one extreme that could happen. It's like, or just one scenario that could happen. If a character, if you were going to invest the time in developing a character out of that as a using like a unit as a base, what would that character look like? And I feel like an apostle or a unit that was revived as by an apostle or something like that could very easily, like, you could see where you could mess around with that. So I kind of want to play around with that for sure. So we've got these two goals. Further experimenting with the Gold Rush, lopsided Team FFA style. I'm really interested to see how that works and what people think, generally speaking. What's up, Remy? And I also, I want to explore these, like the factions, how they're organized, what kind of characters they have, that sort of thing. So right now, the only character we've got as a name is the one who's going to be leading the Evis sect down in the bottom left. Those guys, that's Joran Simons. Joran's a fucking cool guy, and by cool I mean he's a lunatic. But what would you expect out of a literal cult that worships Zerg? I actually do like the idea of this like swarm of simulacra that's just what a mess. Dude, could you imagine? You would like they would basically just like roam, there'd be this roving pack of simulacra like demanding to be attacked. They would have long ago experimented with attacking themselves, but their friend or foe indicators weren't good enough. Like they denied it or whatever. It's pretty interesting. I don't know how you would do that in an RTS or as a character. Maybe as like a faction, you could imagine like a whole group of Protoss that would prioritize simulacra, clarions, and that new support unit that we talked about, where eventually we're going to have a support unit that provides that splitting. It'll probably be something that costs energy, but maybe based on supply cost or something as like a factor of it. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll just not be. Maybe it'll be flat. But the idea of like this unit that like as an aura provides the simulacra split. Yeah, you need the right kind of pain. Can't be any pain. That is pretty interesting because like they have this reward cycle in their brain where it's like, or their collective brain. Oh shit! If I get hit in the head with a siege tank or something, with a phalanx, I start getting stronger in a way. Another part of me is imparted, into the world. Did you play Cosmonarchy? Well, I was back. It was Hydra back the last time you played Rimtech. But did you play when we actually had simulacra in the game? Because you might. I don't know when you last played, but they're the unit that when you attack them, if they're a hostile unit, they split after 5 seconds. It's a real banging concept, and I'm glad we were able to handle it. Oh, I do remember this actually. That was when Dawn was still in the server, I guess. Long time ago. Yeah, it's changed quite a bit. I think I just have to remove this from my playlist, to be honest. Rhetorical question coming. I never had it out for the guy. It's just his. Like. You know what really got me? I won't say that this like colored my understanding of anything in particular because this happened after he had already left. But I did go at some point I was watching like a playthrough that I did years ago. Like at the time it was like 2 years or something. And Don was in the chat doing the same shit. And I was like, man, this is 2 years ago. Like He was probably still like kind of new to the community, and I was like giving him the benefit of the doubt and stuff. Like 2 years later, doing the same uncomfortable shit. Again, like I'm not gonna start bad mouthing him on the stream or whatever. I'm just saying, at that point, like something had to change, and I guess when I brought it up to him, like he just felt like it was better to leave. I don't know. He didn't talk to me about his decision. He just did. He was just like it was kind of weird because like as I didn't reach out to him. At least if I have my timeline correct, I didn't reach out to him specifically and say like you gotta fucking fix this, and like publicly warn him or privately warn him about anything. But I was building up to that. I was getting to the point where like I've kind of had enough, and as like the day I was going to send him the message, or like the day I was heavily considering it for like the third day in a row or something, he did have some sort of weird like really prolonged argument with people about history, but it wasn't even in like Special Bus. It was in I think it was in Mark Time Strategy or something. It was in some unrelated channel where it shouldn't have been, and he was basically like debating the usage of certain technologies. I think the context was like the conversation started about Age of Empires. You might have even been a part of that conversation, Remtech, so you might even know what I'm talking about. But the whole thing ended up being like a misunderstanding on his part, which he just assumed like a completely different context or something. I don't remember all the details. And I was like, all right, well, if I wasn't gonna send the message before, I have to fucking do something now. So yeah, I was like, it was just like the weird sex pervert humor stuff that uh, made people uncomfortable, and it was it was stuff that was probably more culturally appropriate for him and the people where he came from. That was unrelated to it wasn't gonna fly in this server or in my stream chat or whatever. No, that was during a stream where we were debating Hydra names back when it was still called Hydra. We were talking about Hydra unit names. But I'm talking about a conversation on the server that was talking about like history and like the whether or not like a certain technology was even invented at the time, or like what certain military practices were used or something. I just remember it came from conversations about Age of Empires. Yeah, the first thing you see is boy pussy. Well, that guy didn't eat himself. I made sure to get rid of Sunset. Sunset is on another level. It turns out that he's the same guy who like was basically like writing Shakespearean dialogue with like really extravagant shit for Zerg, including like random units like a queen or an overlord or something. They were all speaking in like ridiculously overcomplicated shit. And when I pointed this out, he was like, "Do you want to write my scripts?" I was like, "No, what the fuck, dude? Like, I'm busy doing my own stuff anyway. And even if I wasn't, why would I want to do your work? Just like improve and iterate like everybody else." But why do that when you can say that Manx gives you diarrhea or whatever the fuck? Insane shit. So here's a weird. This is completely unrelated to everything we just talked about. Here's a weird idea or like a dilemma that I'm constantly put into the position of. So for this Joran Simons guy, right? He doesn't need to be more interesting than a given enemy. He's probably one off. Like maybe he comes back later, but the kind of scale I'm going for, like the odds of you finding this is like a one-off mission. There's not going to be there's most likely not going to be like a campaign made about this. And if there is, then I could just reuse the same character, obviously. But assuming there isn't, like I'm probably not going to remake Jordan Simons or like have him be like featured in some other unrelated one-off. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking I just need him to be like a compelling opponent, a competent, compelling opponent who is emblematic of the Nidus Trinity's features and all that shit. And what's up, Lucy? And so the dilemma that I'm having is I want to make characters interesting, and my gut instinct, ironically perhaps, is to make them have something that obviously stands out from everything else, or from other examples of like the generic, the boring, the everyday. The problem is we haven't yet developed what the cliche or like tried and true cookie cutter Evis sect or Nidus Trinity like apostle would be. What would the generic character from that faction be? You know, what would a generic character look like? So I don't have a model for that in my head yet. And so anything that I decide here might I mean, for one, the player's not going to have a model for that either. This is going to be the first content that anybody plays unless they like wait for a year or whatever until the campaign's done or something. You know what I mean? Like, theoretically, this would be the first look that a lot of people have into the Nidus Trinity anyway. So whatever decisions I make here are going to color a lot of people's first impressions, myself included, because this will be my first time playing around with this in a lore sense of like presenting a character that's of this faction. So even if I don't communicate what about this character is unique to this character versus what about this character is indicative of them being a part of the Nidus Trinity. Even if I don't separate that out for the player, I should still kind of know what a average Nidus Trinity leader is going to be. And what would the characteristics be there? So I'm just trying to think about like how I would break that down, because I was kind of like about to write out some motivations for what this character was after, because I think that that's a really good usage of like your initial time considering a character. What are they motivated by? What do they want? And the the stock cookie cutter answer for anything related to the Nidus Trinity is they want to spread Zerg here. They want to have more Zerg here. And they want to be able to, like, some of them want to lead the Zerg. Some of them want to follow the Zerg. Usually the leaders of the Nidus Trinity are ones who are a little bit more ambitious and don't just want to serve. They're also like, they view it as more of maybe an even relationship. Some of them might even, perhaps secretly, because it might be a faux pas culturally amongst the Nidus Trinity, they might even view Terrans, or maybe just themselves, as superior in some cases to Zerg, and demonstrate that by virtue of controlling them or being able to bend them to their will or whatever. So I think there's ways to play around with that. So we have to decide if Joran Simons is going to be more on the subservient or controlling, like demanding side, where is he ambitious? Is he trying to command Zerg? Or is he just trying to increase the number of Zerg that his sect of the Nidus Trinity can incorporate? And like, does he have a higher ambition than just increasing his military resources? Because it's important we keep the plot and the motivations grounded in what would make sense for a military campaign or a military context of a mission, so that the motivations don't seem like they're at odds with the scale of the project. Because we can't just have it be revenge, because then you have to start asking questions like, how does this one character lead a bunch of guys if the only objective is revenge? Or some other like really, really specific thing. Like, you would have to somehow convince all of the soldiers, essentially, that this is a reasonable goal, or you'd have to hide it from them, and then you have to show your work of like showing that he was able to do that effectively or whatever. Why would they want to spread Zerg here just for domination? I mean, like, yeah, the point of the Nidus Trinity, generally speaking, is that they view Zerg as by and large like a higher level of life. And so if they themselves can be assimilated into the Zerg, like brought into the fold, they view that as like a personal goal for them. And then like the goal is, well, obviously we need to safeguard Zerg. We have to increase the amount of Zerg there are, because otherwise they might get defeated by the other races or whatever. You know, they kind of view Protoss in particular as kind of like persecutors in that sense. And then there's other Terrans, obviously. So many Terran factions that just want to destroy all Zerg as much Zerg as possible, for obvious reasons. So, you know, I have a feeling like this is kind of a thing I didn't consider until just spieling about that now. It's kind of interesting to imagine like faction-based like preferences or whatever. I have a feeling Nidus Trinity don't take Ahmeds too highly. They don't think of Harakans, yeah, those guys. I'm very much a fan of those. They probably don't like fire, actually. They're probably not big fans of that. Just because the connotation of burning down hive clusters and immolating untold amounts of Droleths and Zethrakors. Probably not, that doesn't sit too well for them. It's probably a little bit triggering for them, in fact. But I thought that was kind of a humorous angle to take, just because Ahmed is a funny fucking unit. So it's not just for domination, but that is like kind of a byproduct. Obviously the Zerg are an interesting way where the way that we've got them in the rewrite is that basically they're almost kind of like a runaway artificial intelligence paperclip simulator thing, like a paperclip machine, where the thought experiment is the AI is recursively just like, I've got to, turn a bunch of stuff into paperclips, so I'm going to convert the entire Earth into paperclips. It's obviously like, I don't think that would ever fucking happen. I think it's kind of actually a stupid idea from a perspective of it being real, but it's an interesting thought experiment, so I find value in it there. And for Zerg, it's just like, well, obviously their survival instinct is to spread the soma and to spread more Zerg out there, but interestingly enough, by definition, their existence is based on assimilating other entities. So in order to survive, they almost have to dominate the other races. And it's kind of like an AI that's hell-bent on cleansing the galaxy of organic life or something. It's kind of similar to that. Although that seems a little bit less realistic, actually, than what the Zerga actually have. At least in my opinion. But you never know. Obviously, this is entirely, like, imaginary shit. So I don't actually know how I would go about blocking out the exact characteristics of all this stuff. But I would say that, like, I imagine the average commander of a, like, again, religious leader, whatever I haven't figured out the ranks yet for, like, what the ranks would be called for the Nidus Trinity. But I do know that the top dogs of a particular sect, or the military commanders anyway, would by and large probably believe in the cause and wouldn't have ulterior motives. And the question is, do I want Jordan Simons to be like run of the mill in that respect? I think I probably do. I think he probably should at least present as a devout, a devout follower of the Nidus Trinity's doctrine, so to speak. So I guess that's what we're right. It does feel a little weird to like not have any further like unique motivation, in my opinion. But this guy's unique insofar as he'll be the first to be presented from this faction, like the first to have a face for the faction. So I think that's fine. I just spent like a half an hour before I started this stream organizing a bunch of portraits. And there are some that I could use for a few cases, especially like characters and stuff. Problem is, don't have the port data extender, do we? It was never finished. So, not sure where we're going with that yet. But we could probably convert them into some format for the new engine. Yeah, it's just, well, I feel like that terminal goal would never actually be programmed into it. Like you'd have to like, so the way that the reason why it's unrealistic to me and kind of like almost asinine to suggest it as a legit thing is, again, I think as a thought experiment, it has value because of exactly what you're saying. It's like a terminal goal, right? It's like an example of what that could lead to if driven to its logical conclusion, and an extreme example. But the reason why it doesn't make any sense is for you to have access to engineering and programming on the level that would be needed to create this sort of AI, you would have to be incredibly negligent or underqualified in order to like program that thing. And so it feels like the combination of resources and experience and knowledge required to even have the access to make such a decision would almost preclude you from ever being able to make a decision that short-sighted. Maybe that's me being overly optimistic, but it just feels like it's almost impossible that somebody gets into a position where they can actually make that choice and still doesn't. I guess if they were a bad actor, I could see it, but if they were unwittingly doing it, which is usually the context of the example, I don't see how you could be that dumb, basically, and like have access to something that could actually do that. I mean, like in a simulation, you could, but to deploy that kind of thing with a real piece of like AI and hardware that would actually do it, no. Yeah, but again, that goes back to like if you're setting goals and you're doing this in the real physical space, the amount of checks and balances there are like astronomical. Okay. Apostle of the Nidus Trinity. Devout believer in the idol doctrine. Aims to bring the Starbound controlled Zerg into his congregation. Yeah, it could be that I'm just ignorant of the specifics and overly optimistic about the checks and balances. I will admit it's not something I've seen a massive amount of research on or whatever, or done a massive amount of research on. To me, the whole idea of like messing around with that stuff seems kind of. I won't lie, it does seem like it's a bit of a fad. I understand that I understand that it seems impossible to understand what the actual ramifications of the technology would be. But still, I feel like it's. Yeah, I don't know. I got your variable data right here, son. I don't know why I felt really possessed to say that. Well, I imagine they must have some like I don't know why this is my default assumption, but I feel like they absolutely have to have some sort of AGI for their automated like war machines and stuff. But they also like it's so fucking blurry as to what they do have and don't have. Obviously in StarCraft 2 they like went super fanfictiony with it. But like it's kind of blurry to know if like can the robots interface with the Kala? Did they have they found a way to digitize or neuralize some aspect of like how you communicate with each other through that sort of telepathy? Have they figured something like that out? Like I don't know. I don't know. I would imagine not, because if they could, I feel like it would be incredibly difficult. Maybe this is another false assumption. It feels like it would be really difficult to like to safeguard against mind control style attacks by anything that could mess around with psionics. So it wouldn't just be, you know, mind tyrants or whatever. It would be like the average zealot could walk up and be like, "What's up, Acantor? How you doing?" Even though that's not his Acantor. I feel like it would be really difficult to safeguard against attacks like that. And if they could, conversely, if they could safeguard against attacks like that, how the fuck do you ever have a mind tyrant? Is it just arbitrarily more powerful and powerful enough to overwhelm the safeguards? Like, what are the rules there? So, as usual, Lard lore only works insofar as they haven't written about it, so it's not stupid yet because they haven't written about it yet. That's basically how lore works in most contexts, unfortunately. When people get a crack at it, I said this about Warlords Battle Cry 1, where some of the most interesting elements of that setting were elements that were not explored. And I feel like that's probably why they were interesting, because if they were explored, they would be really fucking stupid. But that's actually, this is a complete aside, but if you're looking to try to like have a thought experiment about how to improve something in terms of world building or a story, actually go back and look at stuff that they did explore in detail and break it down into its base particles, its base elements, and think from first principles how you could assemble something interesting out of what ingredients they had. There are going to be some ingredients that you need that you don't have that they didn't use, and then some ingredients you don't want that they did use. So you'll have to choose like what to keep and what to take away. I think this is the analogy I gave at the end of my Brood War playthrough. I said from last year. I said, it's like the Bible where you want to pick and choose. You don't want to take the you don't want to have the stuff that like that prohibits you from wearing like mixed cloth or whatever, or like obviously like the actual like slavery and anti-gay stuff. But if you wanted to have something from the Bible that was like good, you might take the golden rule, or you might take some of Jesus' teachings. Or like you just pick whatever the fuck you think is good. That's kind of what you do with all these game plots as well, or even movie plots in some cases. Well, the Barghest is an example of a biological AGI. That's why it is in the profane tree. I could easily see like a profane Protoss faction experimenting on Cerebrits, which is kind of funny because it's like it's all three factions, right? Because the Cerebrit itself is Terran and Zerg, and then a Protoss is experimenting on it. It's like, oh, I wonder what the fuck is going to happen there. So I could see exactly what you're talking about. Oh yeah, well because you would need to figure out how to construct from the ground up organic material that could house biological consciousness. Because you're right that the Barghest is like it's like if a zealot gets destroyed and it was serving a profane master, instead of putting it into a shell of a Dracoden, it's like, nah, I think you could fly actually, and they find a way to fucking like override some of its basic survival instincts and whatnot with that like AGI thing. So some small part of the consciousness that used to serve is stuck in there, but it's not. You're right that it's not like from the ground up. Yeah. Well, the closest allegory we have to a pure AGI isn't really biological because it's like the demiurge in terms of cosmonarchy. What we have in cosmonarchy, that would be like the demiurge. I mean, you also have like robotic crafts, but you don't have anything that's like has a more conventional physical form. And that demiurge is also the example of the most powerful automaton that they have, like in terms of the power that it can exert and stuff. So. I used Battlemaster as a rank for the Calendric Knights. I would prefer to use something a bit more. I kind of want something like Retriever, but that's obviously an action verb. I'm thinking of something that somebody that does the retrieving, basically. So I guess I'll scour the internet for some synonyms. Gundog, that's a good one. Afghan, another good one. Now, Airedale, if that's how you're supposed to say that. Airedale, wow. I guess it's just another term for dog, though, so I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, it's giving me retriever as in dog, not retriever as in what it's supposed to be, so. Recovery you! Recovery. Regaining possession. Because there's like the repo guy, you know what I mean? Like. I actually wouldn't mind fucking around with like making more custom names or whatever for the ranks. Because Battlemaster is obviously not an original one. I don't want to use Praetor. I find that really dumb that Blizzard decided to literally copy something from the Romans. That's why I decided to avoid doing that for the unit names as well. So I'm not going to do that for the ranks. But I'm thinking, like, I was just looking at some of these names. I was thinking for like Redemption, you could have like like I'm imagining like the name with Protoss as the prefix, and I don't think this actually works, but it's like an example of what I mean. It's like if you could imagine like Protoss Redempt, so it would be, you know, Protoss Redempt. It's literally redemption without the ION, something like that. Some sort of where you're not really concatenating. It's like the obvious, but you're shortening a word and making it more like it still evokes the meaning of what the original word was, but it's clearly used as like an honorific or a rank or something, or a unit name or whatever the case may be in the context. And then you avoid the action verb stuff. You keep something unique, but you ideally you can pick something that doesn't look and sound awkward or pretentious. And I don't know. I think redempt or redempt would be more awkward than anything, just because it's like a weird way to say the word. But you're probably bound to get some stuff like that. Retrieval. Convalescence is one I have not heard in a while. Because I could imagine having Convale, but that almost feels like maybe it's because con is like convict, or it's also con as in like pros and cons. It almost feels like a negative title or something. You fucking Convale, you piece of shit. I don't know. That's my context or connotation that I have with it. I don't know why retrieval has synonyms for like healing when it's like taking something back. Like Halo had Reclaimer, and as no lame as action verbs are, at least that gave you like a description of what it is. I would like something that's like that, but isn't an action verb, so it's definitely tough. I don't know why they have all these like weird games that they want you to play. I guess this is probably effective for like getting people to do that. I kind of like accretion just because it's obviously accretion disk from black holes. That's pretty neat. Can't use it in this context, but pretty cool. Fudge tunnel. Do you see that somewhere? Did I miss it? Welcome to the stream either way, but fudge tunnel surely is one thing. Meteor is one that I could definitely use as a rank. You can imagine Protoss Meteor. That would obviously be from Ameliorate. There's also one that's Rectoress, which is like it's like I think it's like a teacher or something. The female teacher. I'll search it up. Oh, it's the wife of a rector. What is a rector? Ah, one that directs or leads. So I think rectoress was also used in the context of a female version of a rector. It seems really weird that a rectoress would be just that guy's wife instead of the same thing, but for a woman. Obviously, rector is an easy word to use in the context of Protoss. So you could easily imagine, like rector might be the name of the, like the aid or something. However, it's dangerously close to rectum, so people will meme on it. You just have to. You have to be okay with that, basically. I could also imagine some like weird Protoss faction having the rank Vigor. But it's also kind of close to Viker, so I don't know how I would want it. I don't think that's not in use anywhere, but probably doesn't matter. It's just a word that it made me think of. The fuck? Metempsychosis, also known as rebirth. Now that. Why is psychosis in the word though? Is that just a simulation? Because metempt would be an interesting, like metempt, or even metemp, I guess, would be an interesting one. They didn't have no rights. They just had almost no rights. I would say get it right, but I can only say that now because before they couldn't. I'm full of jokes. Fucking destroyed. Also, I would just like to show this screenshot off again because I find it very funny. Pretty sure this is just death. I'm pretty sure if you see this, you just uninstall, actually. This is even worse than the one that I sent Veek. Where's that one? I sent Veek this screenshot, and I said if this happened to me in a real game, like a player did this to me, I would probably have to just become a new person. Like, I would just void and become, like, have a new screen name. Because this is too much. But this is even more. What's up, Beaver? Can you believe how prank this is. Anyway, I've gotten nowhere with trying to figure out the rank name, so I'm not going to get hung up on this because it's a little bit more important to just get the basic idea of the characters down. So we'll say like aid to Kiraxar, and this will be I don't imagine that there would be a dedicated rank or military position that would involve recovering assets. So it doesn't really make sense to come up with like a name like Retriever anyway. Yeah, that's what you said. Insane. All right. So yeah, Retriever doesn't really make sense, but some sort of like emissary of the. I actually have a bunch of stuff here somewhere I could probably use. Athuzalon. Now that is a name. Ah, yes. I wanted Monument of Sin to unlock a unit called Cardinal, for obvious reasons. Cardinal Sin. But Protoss Cardinal does seem a bit weird, so I don't think I can actually have it. But you never know. Yeah, I think so. It's like a religious thing. That's why it doesn't really make sense for Protoss, in my opinion. I should also double check the meaning of Justicar, because I was thinking of using that for Protoss, but... This is literally the same word, it's just that one of them has capitals and one of them doesn't. Reasonable. Representative and enforcer of a king's or ruler's justice. Yeah, so this actually is perfect for this guy because he's literally going around and he's bringing fugitive back basically. Yeah. That's basically why. Just a car. A neutral player structure that works like an Itis Canal. I think we can. We just pre-place them on the map, dude. If we can't, then we would just add a rule. So like, obviously you would have to decide if you wanted them to be invulnerable or not. But you do something like this. Or I'll do it here. and then place it here. I don't actually know if this will work, but it doesn't seem like it shouldn't. And even if it doesn't, it's trivial to implement, so. Hi. Whoa! It works. But yeah, that's what you would do if you wanted to. I would do it by exiting your fucking unit into like a hole down here, and then it's like, oh fuck. And then you just decollide into the water forever, so you can't even come back. That's what I would do. So yeah, there you go. I'm actually kind of I won't lie, I am kind of surprised. Not like disappointed or anything. It is kind of interesting to me that people haven't played around with shit like that with all the new rules. Like I imagine people using fucking neutral bunkers and stuff. I don't even know if that would work. That's a thing I should test. I'll open up the well, I guess I'll just open up the test map. Like, let's see. Oh. I mean, I can never get my guy out, but it works. Arbiter with an E is already used in Brood War, although I renamed the unit because it was an action verb. But I'm not using it because it's an action verb. The transport UI doesn't show if you're not the owner of the unit, so. But yeah, like that shit. Well, I can't really test that very easily because I guess I could test it actually. I'll just create a bunker and place it for neutral, and then found units 2. Oh. I've edited the wrong map. The fuck? Hey, what the fuck, dude? He didn't get in the bunker. What an asshole. Just gets fucking blasted with an ion cannon, of course. I still don't know why SCM Draft just freezes when I close this map, but it's pretty annoying. So why wouldn't this work? I guess maybe it doesn't work for AI. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, it's just not working, unfortunately. Well, I guess what I can do is I can mind control the unit and then put him in the bunker and then... Oh, I'm glad the fucking text is broken again. Let's see what happens if I walk up here. Will he attack me? The fuck? Well, he's definitely in there. There he is. Fuck him up. So maybe AI don't actually use them. And I imagine the AI would obviously not AI wouldn't use like they wouldn't use a lot of stuff. They wouldn't use the neutral niduses either. Dude, why doesn't this push? What the fuck? Oh fuck! No 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 no! To dev, homie. don't fucking do that. All right. Wait, what did you do? Did you just push my stuff? The dev? I almost pushed everything to master again, so that would have been pretty funny. Just make you fucking do all that work again for no reason. Sure. Oh, it's probably because it's in use by a CM draft. Let's try that again. I think the only thing that's missing from this guy is the... I don't fucking... Who knows? Anyway, I'm on dev now. Great. I hope I didn't break everything. Let me open this up and just re-add the fucking tile set files. I'll just push everything at the same time later. Anyway, yeah, we know that neutral bunkers and neutral nidus canals work. I imagine neutral didacs, pre-placed neutral didacs probably work as well. But I don't think it's possible to make them stay stationary. So you'll just have to wait until I have a cloaking structure if you want that. Or I guess theoretically you could have a melee map where the neutral didact is constantly ordered to move between one area of the map to the other. So it's like a patrol route. And you could theoretically like follow it along. That's actually kind of interesting. Could happen. Tell me that. I don't know about best, but we'll say... We'll just say that. Now we need a name for this last character, and we know... Okay, cool. Oh yeah, we didn't actually write the description for Terem either. I'll probably tweak that guy's spelling, but Anitos seems like an interesting name. I guess it could be like ANN or something. Anitos. But yeah, I think instead it would just be like a feature of a specific unit that can do that or whatever. Because only Terrans can repair stuff anyway. Yeah. So, like, you were already a bit of a step ahead of me on that one, but there would have to essentially be this sort of uh, like a while ago, I had the idea of a repair or this reclaiming mechanic where there'd basically be like a progress bar that would fill up where this like a unit would essentially like a worker all workers would have the ability to reclaim stuff or whatever. But it is a very new mechanic to something like StarCraft, it being related to workers specifically, because obviously there's like mind control and stuff, player transferring. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting anyway. I do like that the description for Scattered Stardust in the campaign planning is introduces the divine primacy, likely destroys the player with infinite legions. Pretty good. So I think we've got a pretty strong premise. For our overall for our mission here, I think. So. I was also playing around with, like, this is such a minor detail, but it does have a slight psychological effect, in my opinion. I was playing around with, like, in my head, trying to imagine where the players or where the characters' portraits would be, in what order. And I almost want to have Karaxar on either 1 or 4. Probably 1 for the sake of, like, it being consolidated to one spot. 2 and 3 make the most sense if they're equals because they're on the same playing field, right? And they're also right next to each other, so you get that, like, this is a very limited format, but you can make choices within these limitations to communicate exactly what you're going for. And with Karaxar and Ethintos being on the same height level, we'll say, eye to eye, it implies that they're equal or they treat themselves as equals. And I feel like for this, because Karaxar is basically served under Terem in the days of yore, like at some point in their history, no longer can obviously, like, there's going to be some conflict there, and I kind of want to show that or hint at it in many subtle ways. One of which being maybe putting him in slot 1, because then he's at a lower slot, his lower height level. Ethintos is more sure of himself and therefore higher up. Also, the one relaying the information from up on high, from, like, the superiors to both of them. Karaxar, on the other hand, is going to be a little bit more down. You know, he's going to be, like, feeling pretty conflicted at this point. So I almost want to very, very subtly imply that based on the slot assortments. So I think that's what I'll do for now, and that's the reason behind it. It's probably such a very minor detail that most people just wouldn't even give a shit about. Like, most people probably just look for aesthetics. I'm trying to, like, leverage what limited aesthetics I have, because I don't have camera angles. I don't have, like, oh, this character would be, you know, sitting down while Ethintos is standing up or something. Like, it would be a very obvious, like, blocking way or whatever of staging a shoot for a movie or a cutscene or something where that would happen. You could easily imagine what would be going on there. So now you know what's going on anyway. So yeah. I'm only now realizing as well that Terem is a little bit close to Terran. Terran. It's very close in pronunciation. I might want to change that. My initial thought was that Terem would actually be short for, like, Terimthor or some longer name that he shortened when he was exiled as, like, a way to maybe he, like, removed the suffix that was related to his clan or something, or I guess they wouldn't be clans, but tribes or families, houses, whatever organization they have. So yeah, we'll iterate on this. This took way longer than I thought, but I'm actually quite happy with, like, the rough cut that I've put together here in terms of characters and stuff. So we have a very rough block out of the dialogue events we're going to have. there's definitely way more areas to improve upon this than we have, obviously. So, um, we'll say by Raxar, Joran. And then obviously we'll have that. And then by Terran. I never played alternate, so I don't know. At least I never played that any mission where I was playing as those guys. Or if I did, I've removed it from my memory. So the answer is no. Because I don't know. I guess that's the answer. It's I don't in parentheses. No. So we've got some basic ideas for the overall like dialogue events, but we can also add some more. We can do something like, you know, defeat 100 units of this player, lose 100 units to this player, you know, something like that. We could probably have slay 100 of Terran's Zerg, Terran's Protoss, and slay Joran's Terran. To Terran. Obviously 100 is just some arbitrary amount. So there you go. That's like a bunch more dialogue. Basically everything I can come up with as like an event that's worthy of notation is like super easy to like scale up from there, because you basically have these exchanges where, I mean, the 100 thing could probably repeat a while. You could probably get to the point where you're like, you know, for every 100 or every 250 or whatever the increment ends up being. Maybe the first 100 is notable, and then from then on, it's like every 500. So you can kind of get the scale of the battle based on the dialogue there. And then maybe like we might even modify which kind of transmission it is depending on the stakes or what's happening. So if the player has less expansions or less military units or something like that than their opponent that they're bantering, maybe the character that the player is playing as has a different reaction, right? Because they're actually on the back foot theoretically. So they might like be a little bit more fearful. We can actually check for that stuff in AI script using I think it's unit check as the command. So we can actually write that in as like variants of the dialogue. I don't know how involved I'll get with this map because I only have today and tomorrow before I have until Friday before it's due. So just based on that alone, I'm not sure where we're going to go with it. But I like the idea of messing around with that sort of thing. What's up, Balethal? Welcome. I just spent a long time working on like the characters and some of the faction organizations and stuff. It's not all final, but I think we've got some really interesting like I've done some interesting world building on the organization of some of these factions. I'll say that much. For example, I've decided to call the Divine Primacy, they're like regional organizations. So like for Nidus Trinity, it's sect So we've got like the Aviz sect, or Eviz probably is how I would pronounce it most of the time. So there'd be the Eviz sect. In this case, we have pillars are like the main thing, and then there's like subdivisions of pillars that are more specialized. So there's the general military, or even I wouldn't even say military. It's like the general governance would be the, like in this case, it's the Alasara pillar of the divine primacy, and then obviously you imagine like each pillar is doing its share to hold up. It kind of has that symbology, pretty unique, like intrinsic to it, which I think is really nice. And I also have never seen that used as a term before, which is a bonus. And then in this case, you're playing as a member of the Alasara jury. That's it. Your sort of like specialized element is you're representing a court case in some senses. Yeah, the Trinity is split up into sects, not 3 sects. There's way more than that, but yeah. So some pretty cool stuff here anyway. I will I was just about to go take a break to get some more water because I'm getting a bit parched and definitely need to use the bathroom. But when I come back, I want to see what I can do for some. I think I'll do some decoration. I'll take a bit of a break and let this stew because I've got like a basic framework for everything. I might want to do some exploratory stuff, like when they reach a certain area and they see like Zerg in a certain area, maybe like conditional exploration dialogue could be interesting. Problem is, I would also want the player's screen to be in a certain area. We don't have an AI command for that, obviously. We can't like check the screen position and see if this tile is within the screen position or something, which would be actually really really useful as a conditional. If we could do that in AI script, that would be really epic for dialogue, for triggers and stuff. But we can't right now, so I won't even bother with it. Instead, I'll just like draw attention to it if the certain conditions are met. People may have noticed that if they built a Maverick and moved it over the Tikimon in Wall Street War, it's pretty ridiculous reality to live in, but it's true. What else? No, I think that's it. I'll take a bit of a break, come back in less than 5 minutes with some more water, and be revitalized into smashing some stuff. So, BRB. Yo. Why does nothing ever work? YouTube sent me an email saying that they were changing the way that unlisted videos worked, and that existing unlisted videos from before 2017, or from 2017 or earlier, are going to be set to private, and some of those videos are actually linked in a few places. So I went to go and opt out of the changes because that's what they said I should do. And I'm hitting the submit button over and over again. It's not working, so I'll probably have to do a entirely different browser or some bullshit. YouTube. I guess I'll just... What is this fucking URL? Oh, they didn't fix that bug after all. Okay. Well, that worked. Of course, just arbitrarily on a different browser, because who knows? Let's minimize that. Let's fix this. Groupie got an update recently that was... It fixed a few actual issues, and then it said, hopefully fix this other thing that keeps happening. Didn't fix it, but whatever. At least they got some positive updates. Okay, like I said earlier, we're gonna do some decorating. Gonna be pretty nice. I think I'll actually sit down for this one though, because I've been standing for a couple hours. Okay, let's see what we got here. Obviously, the easiest doodad symmetry of my life. I feel like that's a normal-ish symptom of seeing whatever that screenshot was that you posted. Oh, never mind. Yeah, I actually feel like once we get some more single-player content in for Cosmonarchy, which is what I'm mostly working on these days, it's going to be, like, it really will wake a lot of people up to the... Not in a wake-up sheeple, like, satire way. I mean, legitimately, like... People will be like, holy shit, I didn't even know this could exist. You know what I mean? Maybe the way I should go is by making missions so difficult that it takes people like months of mastery in order to beat, and that gives me enough time to make the second mission, and the cycle continues. Maybe that's how I do it. Because obviously, I don't really feel like it's a sound plan to just like release. I don't want to consistently release like late shit, basically. So there you go. Got some symmetry going. Well, I feel like it would weed out a lot of the casual players who are actually not interested in improving, which actually wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. I'm perhaps unsurprisingly. Yeah, agreed. If it's not because the AI is unfair or the situation is unwinnable, then it's fine. It comes down to what you're actually losing because of. And I feel like most people would be losing because they're bad and not because the mission is designed in such a way that it's like taking advantage of you or whatever. Well, taking advantage insofar as what would be a good way to describe it? I have a very punishing style of map design. Or not map design, but just game design in general. Insofar as if you're not, like... If you're bad, you're not going to be able to, like, win out of nowhere. You know what I mean? I'm pretty good at designing mechanics and AI and stuff that will exploit weaknesses if you present them. And everybody presents them. So it's about whether or not you can exploit the AI's weaknesses as well. And not in a sense where it's exploit, like the dirty word exploit, like, oh, this is an unintentional thing. More so like, if you have a good understanding of your opponent, then you can use that to fuel your eventual victory. The month thing was a bit hyperbolic, but the idea or months thing was a bit hyperbolic. But I'm sure there's going to be some people who are the right mixture of wanting to pursue improvement and bad currently when they start playing, to the point where they will have a long, illustrious career of trying to beat the same mission over and over again. Just a guess. I feel like with enough players, though, it's inevitable. Yeah, I mean, like, this is a mission where theoretically there's an element of unfairness because it's a 1 versus 2 versus 1. There's obviously a team of 2 here. But the way that the map design is laid out, these guys are actually at disadvantageous positions. However, if you don't deny expansions, if you're not capable of, like, playing a certain playstyle, there's a couple of different playstyles that can work here. You can rush, you can turtle, and try to out macro the AI. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. That's possible for sure. You can try to just spike tech because Protoss work in a certain way now where they actually don't have tech requirements for any structure. So if you can harvest enough resources off of one base, you can just get like tier 3 tech in the first like 5 minutes of the game, depending on how well you do. It's just you're going to be kind of under strength otherwise, right? You're susceptible to rushes of your own. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what people's playstyles are in this map. But yeah, well, I can't help you there. I mean, you can just boot up a melee map or something and see a taste of what we're talking about. If you're interested in exploring it anyway. Divine creation. One of the things that I kind of liked about I was like coming up with dialogue just as like a thought experiment. Like, what can I mess around with dialogue wise to attempt to flesh out some of the like what would I call like what would like an imaginary transmission sound like? And I would just like imagine a couple of cases where maybe there's some stuff going on, right? And one of the things that I came up with, no joke, was some Terrans would be sitting like trying to like hold off against some Protoss, and another wave shows up, and we got more primates coming at us because primates. I feel like that would be a line and would actually have some character to it. Feel pretty thematic. Even like it's kind of tongue in cheek or whatever. It's kind of like maybe even out of left field for some people, but it's almost like because they're more sophisticated than an ape, obviously. And if anything, the Terrans or the primates. It's actually kind of funny to me that I would imagine a dialogue line like that going something to that effect. Yeah, the multiplayer angle is kind of tough for people who don't have well just for any sort of situation where there's like weird um like ping stuff going on. Get better internet than not. It's more of his geolocation. I don't think I don't think there's a insert X solution forehead um, thing that people will be able to do to solve that one. Yeah, just move forehead. There you go. There's the solution. I didn't think about that one. See, Balefal's really got them all. Got all the answers. Fucking doodads on this tile set are so weird. So, at least there's some alien mics and stuff, but I don't think they're that useful. Yeah, one of your transmissions was censored. You said, my net is okay. My port forwards don't take into effect. No idea what was illegal. Oh, then you sent it again and it was fine. Don't ask me. Maybe you got rate limited or some bullshit. Yeah, I need to take some time to add more like tiles and doodads and stuff basically. It shouldn't be that difficult. It's just going to take time like all the other tile sets did. Yeah, that's what happened. But yeah, on the topic of I'm not even going to engage with that bait. On the topic of campaigns, though, Rimtech, I think you might be able to actually speak to this more than most. But I have a feeling that having single player content just allows for a very different kind of crowd to engage with it, with whatever the content it's based on is. And you just don't have the same level of like I don't know. You don't have the same expectations. I think there's probably like a portion of it is ladder anxiety and stuff. But considering most games, in most games the offline single player content is never actually designed to compete for your time. I feel like it'll be a breath of fresh air for people when they do see, oh shit, this is something different. Like basically right now the crowd that this mod would attract is going to be mostly focused on like melee because that's just what's available. If there's a campaign, if there's a single player element, there's going to be a different crowd that's attracted, and that crowd is not necessarily going to be like massively successful when they first start playing because it's actually a project where it's very skill testing. It's very difficult, just flat out. But I think that there will be a number of people who filter through that and are able to find some enjoyment nonetheless. It's just like those kinds of people would have no interest in the project if there wasn't some kind of single player experience where there was no ladder anxiety, there's no cooperation, they can play offline at their whim, pause, save, whatever, and come back. I feel like it's like a very different demographic, but still one that is. It's not like they're not RTS players. It's just that they prefer single player stuff, basically, or they prefer at least being able to learn at their own pace, so to speak. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like having stuff that actually competes for your time will be for people who are actually interested in playing an RTS. It'll be pretty massive Because there is just no single player experience that actually does that. There's stuff that is difficult, but it's not like it's not fair difficulty. You know what I mean? It doesn't earn it. Is a one way to say it. Hydra 1.0 filtered out your friends. Sad but relieved. Ask YouTube, dude. For days. Well, I did have to literally AFK for like 15 minutes in the third mission because I just killed the enemies, but the map didn't resolve. I had to wait for the timer to go away. It's pretty embarrassing. Well, RTS games are very individualistic insofar as you yourself have to be held accountable for being like you're responsible for everything. It is like most of the time these are 1v1 games. I think that's just an underexplored aspect of them personally. But because of that, it does filter into a very different it's a very different look for most people. I can't really comment on UEDIP just because I haven't played it anywhere close to recently, but the problem that it had historically was that it was just very confused. Like I was never really sure what the point of the project was, basically. Not to say it had no point, but it didn't really present itself very didn't always explain its premise very well. That'd be one way to describe the questionable nature. I'm not sure what you mean by nameless, voiceless entity. I guess you're referring to the fact that in most games, you're a viewport and your character doesn't actually do anything. Well, it does stuff, but it doesn't. It doesn't have he doesn't have lines. Like if you look at Starcraft as an example, you never have lines. You're never following a protagonist in a conventional sense, which is a fair criticism. Like the original Starcraft campaigns were pretty bad. I just feel like people who actually want skill testing gameplay in an RTS context they all unilaterally understand to not look for campaigns. Like don't even fucking bother considering them. It's not even on their mind. They're not even on their radar. And that's sad because It's not like a foregone conclusion. I'm gonna try to make a compelling counter argument to that thought process anyway. So. And yeah, when you play games that are a bit more on the small player base side, that definitely can happen. Room tech. I wonder if I even have crevices in this tile set as like a mineral type or whatever. I don't think so. That doesn't look like it. Could throw those in there later. Just gonna add these to the brush real quick. Yeah, and it's also still receiving updates, so... Oh, wait, I need that. There's only 3 races because we have in-game data limits that we have to deal with. So I haven't added any additional ones. And there's no like sub-faction specialization or whatever. There's lore factions, in-lore factions, but that has no bearing on the actual gameplay. What else should I throw in here? I'll leave it at that for now. I like that for whatever reason. We've got doodads that look nothing like the cliffs that they're going to be placed next to. But they add a little something, so whatever. I guess it's kind of like the stuff in the ice tile sets water, but even that looked a little bit more neat. Yeah, we need to add replay support before we can reasonably be expected to do that one, huh? And we'll also want to make sure that generally the game is stable. I'm pretty excited to play around with it, for sure, so. Excuse me. What's up, Muta? Welcome back. Really weird that Blizzard didn't just copy a bunch of these doodads on the higher terrain level. I don't know why they thought it was reasonable to leave so much out. Yeah, dude, they're extended. Double wide, homie. Wide load. I really cannot believe that fucking invoice got paid. It's so ridiculous. How is that company real? Fucking sequel video to Domcasts was not actually expected. We didn't think we would make one, but I would like to know what this doodad is even supposed to be. It looks like a ball fell on a dragoon or something. Or maybe a ship. Whatever it is, it's fucking weird. Yeah. I could actually. It's probably pretty likely I could find like somebody who would be willing to. I don't think I could get a prize pool sponsor. I could get like a peripheral sponsor probably, just from my contacts in the esports industry. I don't know who the fuck I would go to exactly, but I'm pretty. There's got to be somebody I know that is like 1 degree away from somebody else who can handle this. Would be pretty cool, I guess. It definitely becomes a bit more like legit sounding when there's like, oh, sponsored by whoever the fuck. And since I'm casting it, I can guarantee that like there's going to be good sponsor activations and whatever AIDS words that they're going to use. Because I'll just be like, I will write the most ridiculous sponsor plugs of all time whenever I get sponsors. Just waiting on that little detail, that pesky little detail of not having any yet. But when I do, the world will fucking change forever. Yeah, that is some next level shit right there. Oh, that would actually be pretty good. And the other thing is, since I have tile set control, I can just slap the decals down, right? As like doodads or whatever. So I would obviously put them in courtyards because that's where a lot of the big battles are going to happen. So you're going to get that fucking like activation right there. I don't know. That might be too obnoxious, but I would find some way to do it. Maybe by the mains. I think mains are pretty innocuous. Choke points, that sort of stuff. But yeah, I can do pretty much whatever the fuck I want when it comes to trying to do that sort of thing. I should check the buildability. Looks like I already walked through and updated a lot of these doodads, but I'm gonna just take another look for the sake of consistency. Yeah, I definitely updated the ramp, I can tell you that much. I'll take it a step further. Just make it so more of these are actually usable. F. What's up, homie? I like how for some reason they have really tiny doodads, tiny men, in the index. They're not using them, but it's pretty funny looking. Yeah, it looks like generally I did update all the path ability on this. Pretty sure Lard didn't do it this accurately. All right. I was thinking earlier, DF, it's probably pretty easy to make an urban. I guess you would want like a hexagonal pattern, but it's probably pretty easy to make some sort of urban variant of Basilica, since it would be kind of messy to get the pattern right, but you would basically just do like straight lines of different geometry. It's probably possible to use like some existing tiles like this one to pretty good effect for the pattern. Maybe not hexagonal exactly, but it would be like some oblong, like symmetrical but complicated geometry. Angular geometry, maybe. I think it would look pretty good. You get anywhere with your epic experiments for the ramp? I didn't realize this was the same. Easy fix. Oh, the other thing I should do in that tile set, of course, is we need to that was a P-colored installation entrance. Not a very well P-colored installation entrance. But iQuare wanted it for something. I actually haven't heard from iQuare in like 2-3 weeks now, so hopefully nothing horrible happened to him. Let me see which one of those I like better overall. I guess the one with more defined shadows is a little bit more recognizable at a glance. Feels like it blends in a bit better. Miscounted there somehow. Oh, I didn't miscount there. I dumb counted myself, actually. Didn't add it a third time because 3. P-colored U. Well, it can't be on the tile set. It would have to be a sprite. Suppose it wouldn't be impossible. Okay. We've got crevices. Now the only problem is, obviously I have to open crevices. Oh fuck! This whole time it somehow reset to not no cycle. I guess I'll just reindex the BMPs from here then. It's pretty annoying. Maybe I set it at some point though. I don't remember doing that, but destroyed. Chew on that while you respawn. Nerd. That's how you know you're playing a skill testing game, though. When you feel accomplished. IMO. Should be good. I guess later I might add mud or something. Would be funny if I put crevices on crevices. Not really any point to doing that, though. Just be unreadable as fuck. But how? I selected the wrong one, I guess. I'll put crevices in your crevices. So you could crevice while you crevice. Now that's an old meme. If I wasn't ancient enough. It's kind of a meme that I re-imported these on dirt because it's literally the crevice tiles. I mean, the mineral one makes sense, but the basic one is kind of funny that I re-imported that at all. I guess I should get around to making the gas crater things. Basically the crevices that have like Vespine stores implied in them. Ah, shit, you know what? I just realized that this is all wrong. Well, I can fix that, but for now I'll just keep organizing, because they'll be the same tiles. So the subtile is obviously offset, but I didn't consider that when I was placing them in the PSD. What I actually should have done is take the subtile from the in the same tile set format that we're used to, and then use that instead of the canvas. So that actually explains a lot of like bizarre issues that I've had. I can't believe I just now noticed it. Or at least now, I noticed that there were problems with blending before, but I didn't realize why the fuck it was happening. It's kind of weird. At least it'll be super easy to fix this. All right. No. Didn't actually do anything yet, homie. It does mean I have to re-index it for a third time, because 3. Oh well. Not that big of a deal. It won't stop me from complaining about it. Yeah. People have been saying what Balathal's been saying for years, especially with those World of Warcraft players. Poor guys. I think he was commenting on a more broad industry trend. But yeah, maybe he was also just owning you. I don't know. Oh, be careful. Soon you won't be able to post the clown emoji. I'll get banned. You don't get banned, but it is pretty funny. It's like if you post like a certain number of them, you get banned, but it's only that emoji. It's not just like a generic emoji spam. At least as far as I know. I've certainly seen random people who have never chatted in my stream before spam emoji. Do I even have? Oh, I have the space down here. Anyway, let me just confirm that that actually fixed the issue by placing some stuff over here. Yeah, it looks like it did actually. I might actually decide to tone down on the shading a little bit, but we'll see. I'll let it sit for a short amount of time. Before making any snap decisions. The good news is that this method that I used for synchronizing the tiles is actually going to automatically synchronize them between their various counterparts because it's actually using the same tile no matter what. So, like the same base tile for both the full and not full variants. It's pretty nice. Means I can do stuff like this without worrying that like the subtile is going to be out of whack or whatever. It looks like this one, whatever it was supposed to be, just got fucked completely for no reason. Oh, I actually accidentally clicked on that one. Oh, I'll have to redo that whole set, but that can be for later. Great, now I need to do the whole micro tile overlay. Ah, Jesus. And I gotta be on my fucking game when I'm placing these tiles, dude. There you go. I guess I placed the wrong fucking doodad, or is that just... Oh, maybe the doodads themselves are just busted in the tile set or something. Yes, that is actually a good metric to use for the modern age. TBH. These might be the same megas as up here. Oh, doesn't look like it. Really weird. I guess maybe I just didn't shift the height up or something. I don't know. So weird. Okay, well, I guess we fixed that as well. I may have hit the dot key by accident and fucked everything, but I hope not. No, I guess not. Nice. Okay, I think we're good there. I will use this opportunity to say thanks for hanging out if you did, and I am going to take a walk, stretch my legs, fold some laundry, do some man things, and yeah, this 3 hour and 3 minute and almost 30-second mod stream is now coming to a close. Cheers, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another one.